Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Get Stuff Done podcast. I'm your host, Gordon Dudley, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by actually the first guest that I've had on the podcast who we can definitely consider to be a celebrity. He's the first person to have a Wikipedia page. And so I think, part of recognition of being recognized as such as having a Wikipedia page. So I will use that primarily for my introduction of my guest today. His name is Tyler Rasch, and he is an American writer, educator, lecturer, actor, television personality in South Korea. Probably he is one of the most easily recognizable foreigners in Korea at this time. And he is the author of the bestseller No Second Earth. 두 번째 죽음은 없다 as the title, and he actually has been in Korea for almost the same amount of time as I have. He has a number of roles and positions currently. He is a WWF Korea ambassador. He has recently started two different business ventures, which we're definitely going to talk about today, which are Speak Up, Meet Up, and also Hangeul Kwaja. Tyler has a BA in International Studies from the University of Chicago and an MA in International Relations from Seoul National University here in Korea. And I know that that particular topic is one of his pet favorites. He has around 500,000 combined social media followers, which is also pretty amazing. So we have a lot of different topics to cover today. But first of all, Tyler, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I can't wait to talk to you about all the topics that we have prepared for today. So.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. And I always like to start asking my guests, first of all, because the title of this podcast, as you know, is the Get Stuff Done podcast. And so I like to ask people what it is that really makes them want to get stuff done. And, you have accomplished a very significant amount already in your career across a wide variety of kind of sectors and spheres. And so tell me, what is it that drives you? What is it that makes you want to get stuff done?
Oh, that's a great question to start off with, the why of everything. The hardest question of all, right? I I think for me it's mostly a question of taking what's in my head and then trying to find a way to get it out of my head.
Okay.
So any
Okay.
idea that's in my head, I want to try to make it give it a chance to become what it can fully become, right? So for me, getting stuff done is about that process. So I guess, when you say to get stuff done, what kind of stuff are we really talking about?
Sure.
For me, the stuff that matters is the stuff
Yeah.
that I imagine, and I'm like, hey, this would be really cool if this existed. How can we make this happen? That's
Okay.
what I think about when I think about get stuff done.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some people that relate that GSD to a slightly more vulgar word, but I
Yes,
try to
yeah.
keep it. I try to keep it PC under the Get
Yeah.
Stuff Done project. Also, because GSD are my initials, Gordon Stewart Dudley. That's how it
Yeah.
all kind of came about. Okay, well, in that case, then let's turn the clocks back a little bit and go to when you kind of first came to Korea, and then you became very well known in the public forum. How was that something that you had planned? Was it something that you had kind of sought after for a while, or did it happen all of a sudden, and then you kind of built on that and continued to do so?
Right. So I have been in Korean media as a TV personality since 2014. The first show I was on, in English we call it Non-Summit or Abnormal Summit, and the Korean title is 비정상회담. And then after that, I was on another show called, I believe they translate it as Problematic Men, or 뇌세시대
Okay.
문제적 남자. It's a
Okay.
strange translation. It's essentially if you took a bunch of Mensa problems and then, had 6 people solving Mensa problems together and sort of talking about whatever they want to in between, and then you add a guest. So that was
Okay.
the concept of the show.
Okay.
And then those 2 shows sort of became a bunch of other things and a huge career in media in general. So my participation in that industry was never something that I had designed or had any designs for.
Okay.
It was completely and utterly what do you say? A coincidence in a way, or
Serendipity.
just a happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
serendipitous happening, I guess you would say. So I was studying at Seoul National University on the Korean Government Scholarship Program, which is sort of the Korean version of the Fulbright, or you'd see the DAAD in Germany or Munbugaksho in Japan. These kind of government-sponsored scholarship programs. So Korea has one of those, and I was here on that. And during my studies, I was very focused on the Korean language. I didn't want to take any classes in English, even though every department has at least one course available in English. And I was just very committed to that. So when I got to a point where, my stipend was running out and I was in sort of financial need of some other form of support, many people around me told me that I should go about teaching English. And I understand that that is would have been a quick way to solve my problem, but it didn't help me get stuff done in the sense that what I wanted to get done was learning Korean. So for me, I felt that that was not a helpful track. So instead,
Sure.
I asked my other non-Anglophone friends sort of where they find jobs. And there was this one website that international students could go to and just get the weirdest kind of jobs where, like, for example, if Shinsege Pekkajam, Shinsege department store or Lotte department store, they have, these food areas where people are selling kimchi or banchan, or it's a bakery or it's a whatever. Well, those are separate companies that have to do their own advertising, right? So if they're going to have a big sale or something like that, what they'll do is, what they would do back then was they would get the international students to come and eat their food, take photos, give them maybe 40,000, 50,000 won and say, go home. But hey, you can show up, you can eat food, you can get 50,000 won and you can go home. So this is what I was looking for. And there were all these different advertisements on this site. And one was like, JTBC is looking for foreign students. And I didn't watch television. I had no idea what that was. I sent my resume to them. They called me. They were like, can you come for an interview? And I was like, yes. So I go. And then it was me and then 13 people who they employ, all of the writers for the show. And they're like, oh, it's actually a TV show and we do debate in Korean. And I thought to myself, well, I need to defend my thesis at some point in Korean. So debate in Korean in front of millions of people on television, that sounds like I would be mentally prepared to argue in front of my professors. So
Two
that
birds,
would
one
help
stone
me get
in that
stuff
sense.
done.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
yes, 2 birds with 1 stone. So for me, that was a GSD moment, and I said yes to it. And then it very quickly became this thing. Well, they were only planning on doing 2 episodes, but then they turned around and said, you're not going anywhere, are you? You better stay with us. And then it became a full-blown television show. And that was just the beginning of a whole new opportunity in life.
Right, I see. And I mean, for I guess most of the people watching this in Korea, they will have seen you at some point in the last few years. But for people maybe outside of Korea, and maybe this is an interesting topic as well, which is the very nature of celebrity, is that if you are not known, in a certain place, then you are a regular person. But what Tyler is really known for is essentially and typically reported as speaking Korean at a better level than most Koreans. That is what people. That is what I think you have become known for, which is I think something very admirable, something that I have not. By any stretch of the imagination achieved, even though I've also been in Korea for a long time. But you also speak other languages. So obviously English native, Korean pretty much native. What other languages do you have? Because one of the things we talk about on the Get Stuff Done podcast is transferable skills, of which languages, of course, is a big part.
Well, so I started learning Korean when I was about 21. So I guess for a lot of people, that's a bit sort of later in their language learning journey. I started learning French when I was a little kid in Vermont in the Northeast United States. Um, and I also learned some Spanish, Portuguese, and a little bit of this, that, and the other, whatever I'm
Hmm.
interested in at the time.
Okay.
But right now, um, I think if someone were to ask me what languages I speak, I think it's really, we have to pay attention to the words we use, you know, like when you say what languages do you speak, as opposed to what languages do you read or write, you know, these are very
Sure.
different things. You know, I
Sure.
can, when we're talking about speech, I think I've lost a lot of my French, like a lot of
Okay.
it. Um, so I'm most comfortable in English and Korean right now.
Hmm.
I'm learning more and more Portuguese. So I speak a little bit of it, but I have a very hard time understanding. Whereas with French, I understand a lot, but I'm having a hard time producing at the level that I understand. And then with other languages like Japanese, like I can't speak any Japanese, but I can read like political and economic news articles in Japanese because I've learned the grammar patterns and there's a lot of Chinese characters in the
Hmm.
writing and a
Hmm.
lot of academic writing or
Hmm.
reporting writing that you would see or journalistic writing. Those writing styles heavily overlap between Korean and Japanese. So
I see.
it really depends on what we're talking about.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, the summary is a multifaceted, multi-skilled person,
Mm.
and that's also, I think, something that you have become well known
Mm.
for as well.
Thank
Um,
you.
Tell me how you came to become an ambassador for the WWF.
Mm. So that was actually, it's just so much happens in life that is serendipitous or by circumstance. So I I went to one of these Wine on Wednesdays events that were happening in Seoul,
I remember
and
those.
yes, so
I
I went to
remember
one of
those.
those,
Shout out to Todd
and
Sample.
yes, exactly. Shout out to Todd Sample. So Todd Sample is the reason why I got connected to WWF. So he had invited someone from WWF to this event, and I was
Okay.
also at the event, and he made an
Okay.
introduction and said, "Hey, you like the environment. This is an environmental organization, WWF." And I was like, "Oh my God, like the panda one?" Like I flipped out, like had a little bit of a fan moment.
Uh-huh.
And then we got to talking, and it turns out they had entered Korea in about 2014, which is when I started media. And after getting all of their sort of groundwork done, they were looking to find someone who could share their message with the public. And this
Hmm.
was in about 2016. And so I was like, well, I'm totally 100% willing to do that as long as you teach me as much as you can about everything you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's how it started. Uh, yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah,
interesting
just in
to
that moment.
have that. Yeah, as you say, but you mean you say serendipitous moment, but at the same
Hmm.
time, people say the harder you work, the more luck you create. So in that
Ah,
sense, we
hmm.
can always do that. And just before we started this episode, we were saying how busy we've been, and how
Mm,
in Korea when often people ask, how have you been? Oh,
mhm.
I've been so busy. And then people, rather than saying, "Oh, what's wrong? Like, are you okay?" That rather more, it's, "Oh, fantastic, well done. That's great to hear."
Mhm.
Because this constant busyness is something that's a
Right.
real present factor in everyday life here, for
Yeah.
sure.
I feel like there's got to be something that how would you put this? It's important to, I mean, you use the phrase the harder you work, the more luck you create. And I think that this is true to a degree, but like you said, if we're too busy in the sense of occupied, then what happens is we are not able to identify or engage with the opportunities around us because we're too preoccupied with other things. And
For
so,
sure.
um,
100%.
yeah, so I think that's always sort of been a really difficult balance to strike, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
really putting yourself, at least as a person who works in media, because you're
Mm.
always meeting people, there's always opportunities everywhere. If you're too open to everything, you'll never get anything done. If you're not
Sure.
open to everything or anything, then you're never going to get anywhere. So you got to find a way to keep yourself open at the same time as you keep yourself busy.
I'm gonna kind of go deeper on that. What is your way? What is your method to find
Hmm.
that balance, to strike that balance?
I think for me personally, it's just really important to define what it is that you care about. Like, what is
Okay.
it that you care about most in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about having goals or having things that we set as priorities, well, you can't have priorities, you can't have goals, you can't have any of that if you don't know what you care about more in the moment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is if you don't know if, for example, earnings are more important to you, or new ventures are more important to you, or learning is more important to you, you have to have a very fundamental value that you are using to identify how to make decisions. And before I learned to be able to do this, I have to tell you, I used to grab way too many opportunities, become way too busy, not be able to execute on them, and wake up with burnout at some point and just be like, I don't know, I give up, and then just sort of move on. Um,
Right. Right.
but but the way for me to get through that, I felt, was to to choose sort of a priority for myself in the sense of a value. You know, for this business, what's more important? Is it gaining followers and getting people to learn about the brand, or is it making sales? Is it me finding a new revenue stream, or is it me optimizing my current revenue stream? You know, this kind of value is important in order to be able to make that decision.
Okay. And so you feel that that's something you've kind of learned along the way. It's been a bit of a kind of emergent, evolutionary strategy that you've been able to come to.
Yes,
What
for
what
sure.
does as of now, or what does an average day in the life of Tyler look like?
An average day. Oh, well,
Is
so
there
I have a
such a thing?
dog. Yeah, there is
Okay.
such a thing as an average day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a dog, and she does her business outside. So I take her out every morning. I walk her usually about 4 times a day, and that's pretty much set
Okay.
in stone.
Okay.
Unless there's an important work thing that I have to do, in which case I will arrange for a friend who lives in my neighborhood to take care of the dog. So I have a very solid schedule that's built around my single family member, which is my dog. And then
Okay.
I have a pretty decent workout schedule that I stick to. So I usually wake up in the morning, take my dog out, go get a cup of coffee and breakfast, hit the gym for a little bit, and then go to whatever appointments, meetings, or lectures, or whatever thing of the day exists in the afternoon and in the evening. And in those morning hours between, you know, while I'm having my coffee and before I go to my workout, that's when I'm doing all of my my emailing, my contacting, my, you know, the tidbits of work here and there, the busy
Okay.
work that
The
I don't
admin.
necessarily want to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Um, okay. And I think that we talked about before how also you're quite regimented in working on weekend, not working on weekends,
Yes.
and deciding what kind of things you do in that respect. Do you also find yourself traveling a lot? Is that also something that you find yourself doing?
I don't actually travel very much. I used to travel a lot. Whenever I would get a lot of stress and needed to sort of unplug, I would just leave the
Hmm.
country for
Hmm.
the weekend. But I don't do that so much anymore because again, I have a dog, and so that's not an easy thing to do. But now that I have sort of determined that, you know, I'm not going to do as much work on the weekends, and when I say I'm not going to do work on the weekends, I actually mean I'm not going to go to filming or give lectures or external events on the weekends. What I use my weekends for is either personal time, or it's working on another project, or getting ahead on a project or something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So I don't find myself traveling unless it's for work, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you come about to publish a book and add
Mm.
another string to your bow?
Well, I think that was always something that people had asked me to do since the
Okay.
beginning of my career in media is, you should write a
Okay.
book about this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
And most of the requests that I received were, can you write about what Korea is like through the eyes of a foreigner or what?
Hmm.
And I didn't
Okay.
feel like these requests were valid. Um, this sort of ran up against my value and my priorities and how I decide what's worth getting done and what's not. So
Okay.
if it's something someone else can do or is doing, it's not worth me doing
Okay.
because somebody else can do it.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
I'm not going to bother with that. So if anybody else who's a non-Korean individual who's lived in Korea for a significant amount of time can provide a non-Korean perspective and that's all they need to write about, they can write that book. I'm not going to write that book. So I'm going to write something that I care about and only Tyler wants to say. So for me, that was something related to the environment. And one publishing company actually approached me with this idea for this other book, but in the other book they had this section
Hmm.
about the environment, and I said to them, oh well, this is great, since you have all these different topics you want to work on with me, let's just start with this one because this one can be its own book and we can talk
Okay.
about all the rest for the next one.
Okay.
And so I pulled out that idea and said, let's just focus on that, and that became 두 번째 지구는 없다, or there is no second planet, there is no second earth. And I specifically wanted to design that book so that the book itself sort of portrayed the message or embodied the message of the writing of the book. So it's about the climate crisis and why we need to care and how that affects our lives.
Hmm.
But I wanted the book to use a minimal amount of ink. I wanted it to be FSC certified paper. I wanted it to do everything that it could to be a little bit more environmentally friendly, to show that we can actually make those choices in the work that we do and have the book become sort of a statement in and of itself. And thankfully I was able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And so it is. There is only a Korean version at the moment.
Correct. Yes. Yes. There was a point where the publishing house, so I don't know how many people are aware of this, but overseas, in most cases, the publishing houses don't take the rights for foreign language versions of the writing. The foreign language version of the manuscript, the rights for that are usually held by a separate agent who then shops those into foreign markets. Whereas here in Korea, the writer typically has to give up all of their foreign language manuscript rights to the publishing house, because the publishing house plays the same role as publisher and agent in South Korea.
I see.
So it's a bit of a power struggle there. But so this company wanted to take the English rights and have those sold off somewhere in Southeast Asia. They took it to this big conference or what. And I just, I didn't think that was going to come of anything, because personally, the book was written uniquely with the Korean audience in mind.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the state of the conversation around the climate crisis in other linguistic communities is
Hmm.
extremely different. And to
Sure.
take it
Okay.
from a Korean context and put it into an English context, just there's no value to the book anymore in my
Right.
perspective. It's
Makes
already
sense.
too over discussed. So there's
Right.
only a Korean version. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. That makes sense. Now, I think it would be safe to say that you've probably inspired millions of people to have an interest in Korea, at least
Mm.
as a foreigner who has
Hmm.
come to Korea and built a career here
Hmm.
and done so many things. A lot of the Get Stuff Done project is also about finding your why. We've talked about that, and
Hmm.
your path, and a lot of people also can be quite late in their career and still find themselves reevaluating what is it that I'm
Right.
doing. So for people perhaps that are earlier in their career
Mhm.
And now that you've had this certain amount of work experience in a foreign country, what advice would you be able to give people who are considering whether it's to go and have a career overseas or specifically in Korea?
Great question. I think the first thing I would like to say is no matter where you are in the world today, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are. You can be anywhere. It's a question of you being able to see other places from where you are or
Hmm.
not. Can you imagine, starting a blog in Azerbaijan? Why not? Like, I'm sure someone can do it. I mean, like literally pick any place on the map,
Yeah.
uh, and you can figure it out. So, and there are just so many countries that are open with new opportunities, and the level of economic integration that we have in the global economy at this point is insane. You don't even you can live in Bali and do work in Mexico at the same time. Like it's this is the world we live in. So if you live in South Korea and you're thinking, oh, my job opportunities and my human capital can only be applied to these kind of companies. There are only foreign companies and Korean companies. No, that's not how the world works. And you better break that perspective as fast as you can,
Hmm.
because you don't see how the world is functioning, and there are so many more opportunities available to you. And the same
Hmm.
to be said for people who are in my home country in the United States, and they think, oh, this is the entire economy and just what we have here. No, it's not. Like, there's so much more available outside for you. It's just a question of you being able to find it. And it's also a question of you being entrepreneurial enough to be able to craft out your own niche in another
Hmm.
economy. Because when we talk about global economic integration and the opening up of economies, if country A is extremely unglobalized and then opens
Hmm.
up their doors to the
Hmm.
world,
Hmm.
and then people from country B, C, D, E, F, G can all run into country A and start a business, that's great. That's wonderful. But guess what? People in country A aren't going to have an example for you how to do that. It's not going to exist because they haven't done it yet. So
Yeah.
you have to figure that out on your own. And this is true for everything. So if you want to start a new career in Korea, you want to find opportunities in Korea, or if you're a Korean and you want to find opportunities abroad, you may be able to find good examples or people who have done something that you can learn from,
Hmm.
but you will
Hmm.
not find someone who has done what you will wind up doing. And I think that's an important point, is you need to be open
Yeah.
to creating your own journey and your own space in the market as a professional or an entrepreneur or whatever path you choose. You
Yeah.
are responsible for building that path, and nobody else is going to make it for you. That being said, there are plenty of places where you can make a path in the woods. It's just your choice about which direction you want to go into.
I think that's very sound advice. This is not a
Thank you.
political podcast, but is there a sense? No, no, I not reference to your answer. It's referencing
Mm.
to what I'm about to say, which is, are you making
Okay.
are you making a long term bet on north of the border for
Oh,
the opening of that? We don't
actually,
have to go there. Maybe we.
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea what will happen with North Korea or the economy or the future of any of the countries in Northeast Asia. But what I do know is that based on the degree of warming that we've already experienced since pre-industrial levels, which is roughly 1.3 on average degrees Celsius, uh,
Hmm.
based on this amount of global average temperature increase, we know that starting in 2035, we'll be able to do trade through the Bering Strait and through the North Pole, right? So this will fundamentally change the world that we live in.
Yeah.
Doing trade through the Strait, the Taiwanese Strait, and the South China Sea, and through the Malaccan Strait. That only has to happen half the year,
Hmm.
or less than half the year. So starting in 2035, that sounds like a far distant time from now, but that'll mean there's at least 20 years of trade happening through that region before I retire. And I was born in 1988, right? So just imagining the
Yeah,
future of the global economy. We're talking about insanely different shifts. Everything changes at such a rate we can't imagine. You need
for
to be
sure.
able to imagine what's happening outside of your country and the opportunities that exist for you there, because those opportunities, they may increase, they may decrease, they may change, but if you're aware of it, you have a lot to gain.
Yeah. That perception of time is something that I do continue to struggle with
Hmm.
on a regular basis. I was shocked to realize that next year will be 20 years since I graduated my undergrad.
Yes,
That
there
kind of
you go.
took a bit of a blow, but at the same time, I can't believe that I have been in Korea for 14 years now. I
Mm,
didn't imagine. If you asked me, even 7 years ago, will you be here in 2024? I probably would have said no. I don't think so. But here we are, but when you bring it down to a much more smaller time frame in terms of what you can do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, then actually you can get a lot done because
hmm.
day by day it accumulates so much over time. That kind of compounding impact.
Yes, for
So
sure.
you know we were talking about people and maybe how they kind of look at their careers. If you ask at least school kids, I'm not sure about my kids, but if you ask a lot of school kids or young people these days, what do you want to do when you grow up? They say YouTuber,
Mm.
online celebrity, and you have significant followers. How important do you think is social media,
Mm.
or alternatively, what are some of the things we should be careful about with regards to social media?
Uh, oh gosh. Well, I think
And
social media
I'm
is
sorry for not,
almost
yeah, I'm
everything.
sorry for not, sorry for not pre warning
No,
about this
no.
topic.
No, I mean, I think, gosh, as a person in media, I have to say that social media is an extremely important tool
Mhm.
for people in my position to earn money. And as a person who runs a business, it's an extremely important tool to speak or connect with customers. That being said, as an average person or user of social media,
Mhm.
I actually think it's extremely detrimental to our mental health and our well-being, and to our ability to access information. Uh, I do not believe that social media platforms are designed to enable us to learn or
Mhm.
expand our perspectives. And in fact, it's pretty much designed to create an addictive habit,
Yeah.
and usually to sort of funnel your perspectives into a much more echo chamber type of
Echo
space.
chamber, exactly. That's what they
Yeah.
say. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's helpful. I think you can find ways to use it and manipulate it if you're
Mhm.
smart
Mhm.
enough, but you have to be
Mhm.
very careful with that.
Mhm.
Um, and then I also think that in the end, all of
Mhm.
these platforms are the same. They all sort of cycle through different functions and different processes in their lifestyles, or sorry,
Mhm.
lifespans, life cycles,
Mhm.
so to speak. But whether we're talking about Facebook, TikTok, or you know, anything else like
LinkedIn,
owned by
my
Meta,
favorite.
like LinkedIn, right? Which was founded by actually someone from my high school, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. But all of these things, they pull us in the same direction, and they will all change eventually to some other platform,
Sure.
anyways. So
Yep.
you just
Yep.
have to be aware that you are uh, being. So in Korea they use this word prosumer,
Oh yeah.
right? Like producer and consumer at the same
Yep.
time, and that's what you're doing on social media. But in the end, really what it is you're making somebody else's product and buying somebody else's product at the same time. That's what you do in social media.
Yeah.
With YouTube, you earn 50% of your earnings or more goes to YouTube. You are their employee
Yeah.
at the
Right.
same time as
Right.
you are their customer. Imagine how wonderful that is for Google, right?
In.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So you got to be aware that that is the ecosystem that you're functioning in. And if you understand that, then it's okay. But those ecosystems will all change and all evolve. And the scary part is those functionalities and algorithms and that design of that ecosystem will also then shift into other interfaces that we will see in the near future with virtual and augmented reality. And, we were talking about using, Apple products or Meta products, and like you can see the interface in your, like it's projected on your hand. All of
Yeah,
those things will then be literally in the space that we live in. And so
yeah.
I think it's important for people to be aware of what ecosystem is being developed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what's all over social media right now, of course, is the Apple Vision Pro, and
Yeah,
the
there you go.
parodies of people living or going down the street whilst in this
Mm,
augmented virtual reality. But
mhm.
Tyler, you are. I think I mentioned about how you probably inspired millions of people around the world to have an interest in Korea. You're also a bit of an ambassador for Korean, right? I think as
Mm,
someone who clearly is passionate about language, and that's
mhm.
something that you've actually now really gone into in a much bigger way with your
Yes.
recent business that you've set up. Also
Mm-hmm.
with someone that I also know. Tell us a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about that recent project that you've launched.
Yes. Okay. So, my friend Nidhi, who's from India, Nidhi and I, we started something called Hangeul Kwaja, or it's basically Korean alphabet snacks. So many countries or linguistic communities have their own alphabet snack, whether it's a cracker or cookie or something like that.
Or alphabetti
And
spaghetti. That was what I personally thought, but I don't
yes.
know whether that still exists, or I don't know. Is it a thing in America, or
I
it's just a
definitely
UK thing?
had that. I
Okay,
definitely had
yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
I used
So
to have it
like
on
alphabet
toast.
soup and things like
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
For sure. The sort of pasta-based product, yes.
Yep, yep.
But South Korea doesn't have this, even though Korea has its own extremely unique writing system that many Koreans are very proud of. Uh,
Rightly so.
and
Yep.
and this writing system is actually very symbolic for the country and its culture and its soft power as a whole.
Fully
But
agree. Fully agree.
yeah, but people haven't really found a way to engage with it in a fun and interesting way, because what happens is people will take Hangul or the Korean writing system and it'll quickly become this linguistic thing about how unique the Korean language is or how difficult the Korean language is, or it will become a little bit too what's the word, a little bit too ethno-nationalist in
Okay.
its
Yep. Yep.
approach, right? And really what would be great if it were to happen would be this writing system could be something that people could play with, and get to know and have fun with. And for me, I think that snacks are a really great way for people to play and have fun. And uh, to have a Korean alphabet snack would just be a perfect way for anybody to taste, interact, smell, play, and learn.
Sure.
So I think it's really the perfect combination for sort of a cultural food, K-food product.
Hmm.
So Nidhi and I, we started this last year on Korean Alphabet Day, or Hangeul, and we've been producing all of this stuff by hand so far. And we actually just today, at the time of recording, we've completely ran out of a certain product and oversold. So we're sort of going through some
Okay.
growing pains in a good way.
Hey, that's the
Yeah,
problem that you want to have, right? I
correct.
mean,
Yes.
okay. So
Yes.
so this is a dry kind of crisp or chip
Ah,
kind of snack.
yes. So technically in Korea, they categorize it as a biscuit snack.
A
So
biscuit
this is the most
snack. Okay.
controversial word in the English language, is a biscuit, right? Like for you,
Sure
maybe
is.
that's a cookie. For me, that's like a lump of bread kind of thing.
The horror of going to KFC in America and being told that we're going to have biscuits. and seeing what came out. But that was my own personal
Yeah, yeah,
experience.
right. It's a completely different concept. And now remember, I'm doing this business with an Indian, right? And for her, a biscuit is another thing. So we're all like,
And
I don't know what to call this.
okay,
We don't know what to call it, but Koreans call it a biscuit. So basically, it's like halfway between a cracker and a cookie. I think that's
okay,
the easiest way to think about it. And it's our first product started with one that's garlic flavor and another that's mugwort or soup flavor. And this comes
okay.
from a traditional Korean story, the tangunchina, right? And now we have a second or a third and fourth product. We have a chocolate flavor and we have a organic rice flour version.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Korea, I don't know. I can certainly say that food trends are not so rapid in the UK. The way that
Mm.
the honey butter
Oh yeah.
was a huge thing, and then the next thing was mint choco
Mint
was the next
choco
biggest
and
thing. I mean,
불닭볶음면 and yeah,
there's been
all of
so
it.
many. So I mean, it feels like with these kind of this unique product, and but at the same time, maybe not necessarily instantly. I mean, the
Hmm.
classic salted flavor is not there, right? I think
Right.
you've kind of gone a bit traditional, which is also great.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, direct question: where can this be acquired? Where can we obtain the Hangeul
Ah,
Kwaja?
right. So if you have an Instagram account, you can go on Instagram, more social media. Yay. So go on Instagram and you can
Keep it
search
social.
for keep it social. Hangeul Kwaja
Uh-huh.
in Korean. If you search for Hangeul Kwaja, the account will pop up. We have a Naver Smart Store available. If you search on Naver for Hangeul Kwaja, you should see our product. If you search on Google for Hangeul Kwaja, you should probably see we have an IMWeb based shopping mall, which you can also purchase from. Right now, we're registered as in Korea what they call 즉석 제조 판매 신고업. So it's basically the same as a bakery where you make the product and you sell directly to the customer. So
Okay.
we're not able to put our product into stores at this time. So we're
Hmm.
selling directly to customers. At some point later, we hope to upgrade our status and be able to actually put our product into other online shopping malls and other stores.
Okay.
But right now, we're actually producing everything by hand, so we don't have a lot either. So if you want some, you better check out the website as fast as you can. Yeah.
And just paint a picture for me here. When you say making by hand, this is not Tyler's kitchen.
No, 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 no. No,
This
it's not
is
my
this
kitchen.
is
No.
already a bigger operation, I
Yes,
guess.
yeah. So we have sort of a small what would you like facility that we're
Hmm.
working in
Hmm.
where we do our what is now I'll have to think about this in English. This is much more difficult. We have to do our make the dough and the cutting and the baking and the packaging and all this. We have a
Uh-huh.
space
Okay.
specifically that is only for this and that is
Okay.
registered through the proper venues.
Got it.
So that is where we're doing the production. But when I say by hand, what I mean is most of the time snacks that have specific shapes are made using a molding process in a very large mass-produced factory
Right.
scheme. And
Right.
for us, we weren't really sure 100% as entrepreneurs what the best flavor would be in the beginning
Mm.
and what the best combination of letters would be, what
Hmm.
the best shapes of letters,
Hmm.
fonts would be. So we didn't want to go directly to a molding process because we wanted to experiment more with our product. So right now we're using handheld cutters to actually print every single letter individually. And then we bake those letters individually and package them individually. And so everything is currently being done by hand.
Okay. Wow. So I actually was thinking about you and the Hangul Gwaja over this
Hmm.
weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Today's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, first
Happy
of all.
Valentine's Day. Yes.
Um, a little unknown fact for people outside Korea: the tradition in Korea is that women buy presents for men on Valentine's Day.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Very
women will
unique.
very quickly remind you that on the 14th of March, 1 month later, that the reverse will happen. And that's when traditionally men will buy gifts for women. But anyway, enough of
Yes.
that. I was thinking about you because I was down in Daegu at my parents-in-law's place, and they have a restaurant, and I was working at packaging their
Mm.
gingnip. or I think in English,
Ah,
perilla. Perilla, I think, is what it's called. It looks
okay.
like nettle, but it
Hmm.
smells. It's part of the mint family, and I was
Hmm.
thinking, actually, this is
Ah,
in
yeah,
your kind of sphere of
for
flavors, which
sure.
could work. So
Yes, it is. Yeah.
if gingnip becomes one of your future flavors, then
Ah,
royalties
for sure.
back to GSD, please.
As soon as this finishes, I'm gonna be doing some like sourcing searches for like genyip powders and things like this. So
Do it,
for sure.
do
And
it.
we're so interested in that kind of sort of is it 엽기적인 kind of, like out there kind of Korean flavors that Koreans are very
Definitely
used to, but people don't usually think
love it.
of to put in a snack. So
Love it.
we
And
love that.
have
Yeah.
you had have you had good initial responses from Koreans because you're focusing on the Korean market initially?
Yes, actually, this is the fascinating part of it. So, whenever we talk about Hangeul Kwaja and we tell people about it, they're like, does that already exist?" And we're like, "No, it doesn't, and that's why we need to make it." And they're like, "Really?" And so then they look it up and it's like, "Wow, this is so cute. Why didn't this exist before?
Yep,
This would
yep.
be a great gift to give. I want to buy it for someone." And so this is sort of the initial reaction that we're getting so far. Of course,
Love
we
it.
have a lot of room to improve. So if anybody has any ideas on how we can improve our product or how we can better go about it, I'd be more than happy to receive any feedback or advice or pointers about that. But so far, pretty positive feedback is what we're
Awesome.
experiencing.
Well, the very best of luck with that
Thank
project.
you.
Um, but I mean, of course, through your media career, you've
Hmm.
also very much forged a reputation for English and Korean,
Hmm.
like the languages.
Yes.
And I know that you've been the face of some education companies. And
Hmm.
I know that you've also gone down that route yourself, and you've
Yes.
actually now
Yeah.
established a company in that sector as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So I think most people actually in Korea now associate me with a company called Kwalsin and our brand called Real Class, which is an online English instruction platform. And that is everything they do is entirely online. And it's been a really great solution for people who are looking for something like that, especially during the COVID times.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel pretty strongly that there's a need for people to engage and apply their language skills in real life with their peers in order to in Korean the linguistic term for it would be 언어생활, right? Is
Hmm.
your linguistic lifestyle, so to
Yeah,
speak, your language
yeah,
lifestyle, application of language in your
yep,
day-to-day life is
yep.
extremely important for acquisition and proficiency, right? So I believe that this needs to happen. So again, my friend Needy and I, we put together this sort of language immersion training program called Speak Up Meetup. So
Speak
essentially
up,
what we
meet up.
do,
Okay.
yes, so the whole point is right there, right? So like speak up, where the goal is to speak up and like not just sit there and be quiet the whole time. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we do is we get people together. They don't have to know each other, and we break them down into groups and teams, and we constantly change those group and teams so that they're working with different people. And
Okay.
usually, a session will start with a short lecture, about 10 to 15 minutes, about a specific topic like diversity or
Okay.
teamwork or the different types of English that exist in the world. And all of this is done in English, in sort of a more simple English approach to get people warmed up. And
Hmm.
then we
Hmm.
do related group activities in teams to get people to apply the English that they already have. And sort of build confidence and grow into themselves. So that is sort of the focus of the program, and we have a bunch of different themes for each session, and we're hoping to target more business people and working people young professionals who want to have a bit more of a global approach to their
Mm,
communication.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so that's what we're
Yeah.
focusing on right now. Yeah.
I think that's so needed right now in Korea.
Mm.
I think I meet so many people in my business of RDI who have a great English test score, and you can't have a conversation with them.
Correct. Yes.
I remember with my former Korean colleagues would often be quoting bizarre, abstract quotes from
Hmm.
literature or philosophy and other things, quotes that I've never even heard of before, not your kind of like commonly used in day-to-day language quotes, but they would know them off by heart
Yep.
when then they're still not able to make an English presentation, and so I think it's a really great aspect to focus on the very active acquisition, because I think also it's
Mm.
about the speed of acquisition as well. I think I mean the ability to meet people, have an interest in it, and then practice it right there on the spot is obviously the most effective way to learn quickly and effectively. So I
For
think that's
sure.
absolutely great. So that is it like regular events that people can just sign up for, or is it kind of event by event? How does it work?
We usually host these events on behalf of a sponsor. So,
Okay.
if there's a company that wants to do this for their employees or to do it for sort of a larger community that they're part of, then they
Hmm.
can reach out to us through speakupmeetup.com
Hmm.
and request an event. So, the people that we started and developed this program with was Google Startup Campus. And so
Okay.
we did 4 events for them and for their community. So we don't have like a specific meetup that we're hosting or a school or some facility like that. What we do is we will come to your facility and to your community or to the type of people that you want to pull together and then host our event on your behalf.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm also a member of several different organizations here, so
Mhm.
I hope that I can see what potential there is, because I think it's the
Thank you.
most practical use, and also you've shown me the
Mhm.
videos of how it looks. It just looks fun, and I think that's the most important thing. If it's fun, then
Yes.
people will learn without even feeling like they're learning,
You
which
know,
is
that's just so important. I can't stress how important this is I think that English language education in South Korea has been demonized and manipulated to the point at which it's about judging people instead of about empowering people. And people have completely lost the opportunity to enjoy the language and enjoy its application and communication and its
for
use.
sure.
And so for us, Speak Up Meetup is really about getting people to be able to do that because that's the only way that they can become confident and feel comfortable and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. And we've in the past, pre-COVID,
Mhm.
we also ran a lot of workshops for groups, and there are these moments where you're bringing together. You said people don't necessarily know each other, even the same
Mhm.
organization. They've worked together side by side for so long, but they don't really know each other, and
Right.
they have these moments where they're doing an activity together, making something, or creating something, or contributing to some kind of activity, and there are these little moments of kind of like collaboration that happen, and then the trust builds, and it just goes from there, and those are really really special, I think. So but basically, congratulations
Right.
for pursuing
Thank you.
this in another way, and definitely a big
Yeah.
shout out to Nidhi as a
Yes, for
fellow
sure.
Yonsei Global MBA alumni, one of the foreigners who have come out of that program of the years
Mhm.
since I graduated there, and there's many others along the
Mhm.
way. Although the vast majority, unfortunately, have not been able to stay in Korea, even though
Mm.
many wanted to over
Mhm.
the time.
Yes.
Um,
Yes,
now,
she's a just to sorry to interrupt you, but she's
sure,
absolutely amazing, and I just have to say she's like a crazy engine, and if you want to talk about getting stuff done,
yeah,
she's the person to talk to for
okay,
sure,
okay.
for sure. Amazing at getting stuff done. I would not be able to do these businesses that I'm doing without her. So definitely highly suggest that you speak with her as well.
I love getting guest recommendations
Yes.
on this as well. Now, I happen to notice that on your
Mhm.
website that there is a
Oh.
whole section dedicated to
Mhm.
art. and
Oh.
it actually says, I think it's a piece written by yourself about how you love to paint with acrylic. Now, that
Hmm.
links to that piece behind you, and I don't know whether it is one of yours or
It
not.
is, yes.
But I
Yeah.
also tell me about that aspect of your life, and
Mm.
how that yeah. Tell me more.
Um, I think so. For me, I like to paint. This behind me is an acrylic that I did. It actually matches another one that's in a friend's cafe now.
Okay,
Um, and I like to do it because it feels good.
okay,
So I know that it's a visual art form.
hmm
I know that, but for me, it's a physical experience, and it's very centering. And when you do it, you don't know if what you're painting is going to be what you want it to be or not. It sort of becomes what it becomes as you do it. And so you have
okay,
no choice but to sort of let go of this obsession with productivity that we live with. And that's why I like to paint, because it's purely a creative process where you have to sort of just let go of your sort of industrial obsessions with work and productivity, and you
right,
can just
right, right, right.
accept expression as an action. And so that's why I
Yeah,
like to paint.
yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. It's not a Pomodoro technique of 20
No,
minutes focus time when it
you
comes
can't
to
do
art.
that. Yeah.
You can't do that. So the piece behind you, how
Yes.
long roughly would it take to paint that? Would you say?
Let's see. This piece behind me,
Hmm.
gosh, I think I did this in less than an hour because it's acrylic, so it dries quickly.
Wow.
And I can do multiple layers in one go. I don't like to spend too much time fretting over what things look like. That's why I hate oil paint. I can't do oil paint
Okay.
because psychologically for me, it never ends.
When you
And with
say less than an
acrylics, it ends. So.
when you say less than an hour, all of a sudden I got images of you as a Jackson Pollock in your studio throwing paint around,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
it done
yeah.
in less than an hour. That wow, okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to ask because it's on your website. Is your art for sale, or is this something a pure passion
Ah,
project?
at first it started off as a pure passion,
Hmm
sort of project thing that I do.
hmm
I started to do a lot of it during the COVID era,
Okay.
and then people were like, "Oh, you have paintings. Let's put them in this gallery over here." And
Okay.
so I did a show with I think it's called K Gallery or Gallery K, and they had like one floor just with about 40 of my paintings,
Wow.
some of which sold, some of which did not sell. And that was my first experience sort of selling artwork, which was fun and interesting to learn about. But I think at the end of the day, for me, like if you want to buy it, you can buy it. Just like contact me. That's totally cool. But I'm not good at focusing on that because it's not my
Okay.
process.
So you're not taking commissions. That's what you're
I
saying.
will if you send me one, but it's not why I paint, and
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so
But I mean, once you've sold a piece of art,
hmm.
I think that tips you into officially an artist. But
Ah,
I mean, passion project. People can obviously paint their entire life, but if they don't
hmm,
sell anything, then it is just a passion project. But whereas
hmm,
you've actually had an exhibition and sold
hmm.
pieces, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
that's a part of what you've done. So you've published a book. You've
Hmm.
sold art. You've
Yes.
become one of the most famous foreigners in Korea. You've delivered, I think, dozens, if not hundreds, of lectures. Um, in offline, face to face, and starred in so many TV
Hmm.
shows. You've done that in essentially it's like 10 years,
Yes.
roughly,
Yeah.
basically.
Correct.
So, $1 million question: 2034, 10 years from now,
Oh no. Yeah.
what is Tyler Rasch going to be doing in that time?
Oh wow. 10 years from now, 2034, I will be 45, 46. Wow, gosh, I have no idea. But that's really difficult to imagine, but I do
Okay.
know that I will continue to try to do the things that I have in my head and get them into the real world. That's what
Okay.
I'm going to continue to do. And I think that's what I've always done. And these past 10 years have been sort of a process of me figuring out how do
Mm.
I know which ones are worth doing? How do I know how to go about doing those? Which ones need to wait? Which ones need to
Hmm.
happen first?
Hmm.
Which ones can I do on my own, or do I need other people with? Like,
Hmm.
this is a sort of methodological learning
Yeah.
period for me the past 10 years. And now I have a much better understanding of what that is. So my ability to take an idea and then turn it into the beginnings of a business and run tests on it, I think is a lot better than it used to be. And I would hope that within the next 10 years that some of these sort of idea children that I have put in the world will sort of start to grow up and maybe live with other people in a way,
Okay.
you know? So I
Interesting.
hope
Okay.
someday maybe Hangeul Kwaja can be a brand or a product that another company is running, or that Speak Up Meetup can be its own thing that exists on its own without me, and I
In
can
a
then
hundred
focus on
countries.
wherever it is, whatever it becomes.
Yeah.
I'd be more than
Okay.
happy with that.
All right.
And I think I would like to really just do more of the things that are in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if the last 10 years are anything to go by, it's
Hmm.
going to be another half dozen or more very
Sure.
eclectic, but each successfully in their own right
Hmm.
elements, which I think is something that in under the title of Get Stuff Done, I think you're
Hmm.
obviously clearly a very high achiever, but very kind of relaxed and
Mm.
unassuming about that. Where
Hmm.
people's dream is to write a book, right?
Ah,
Um, right, and you've done
yeah.
that, and so there's
Can I just like attack this idea for a second about like
sure,
having the
jump on it.
dream of writing a book? Because
Uh-huh.
I run into this a lot. I give a lot of speeches and talks about career paths and doing what you want to do in life and accomplishing your
Mm,
goals and your
okay.
dreams, etc. Obviously in a Korean context, but the idea that I constantly run into is people have this idea that what you want to do, the end goal in order to get there needs to follow some sort of formula. And so in order to become a lawyer, you have to go to law school, you have to pass the bar, you have to do blah blah blah. Right? And they apply this methodology to other things they want to do in life. In order to
Hmm.
write a
Hmm.
book, you need to write the first chapter, you need to have a blah blah, like these kind of things. And while that may work for some things in life, like becoming a lawyer or something that is highly regulated by the government where you actually
Yep.
have to do specific things, sure, that
Specific
can
steps.
work.
Yep. Yep.
But with most things in life,
Mm.
with an idea that you haven't seen happen before
Hmm.
or a thing you want to make in the world, these things don't happen based on a formula or a step-by-step process. They happen through experimentation. And that experimentation can never happen on a large scale in the beginning. It's impossible. If you try to do that, you will immediately give up. It's not that
Yep.
you will fail. Failing is perfect. Why? Because an experiment, we don't care about if it's a failure or success. The point of experimentation is not to create a result. It's to create a process, right? We don't experiment in order to get a yes or a no at the end. We experiment to get a, oh, if I change this variable in this way, and if I do
Yep.
that, then it changes
Yep.
like this. It's
Yep.
learning and finding a better way
Learning. Yeah,
of creating. That is
for
what
sure.
experimentation is. That's what it does in the lab. That's what it does in its creative process. And we need to really throw out this idea that in order to write a book as your dream, then you have to write the first chapter, then the second chapter, you have to have an outline, you have to blah, blah, blah. These kind of like preconceived ideas of accomplishment and getting things done need to be thrown out the window. And the first thing you need to do is sit down and write something that's on your mind. And
Yep.
then what is the
Yep.
next thing you do? Do you do the same thing over and over again? No, you don't. You take it to the next step, right? So you've written what's on your mind. Did you like that process? If you didn't like that process, maybe writing isn't for you. Does that mean you can't write a book? No, it doesn't. Maybe you should talk to yourself on your phone and record it and do voice to text. Did you try that? If you tried that and that didn't work, okay, well then what's the next thing you can do? This is the process that you need to go through,
Absolutely.
you know? So
Totally.
I feel this very, very strongly. That's how I am able to determine if the ideas in my head are worth doing or not, uh, and and move forward in my life. There's tons of
Yep.
things that I've done
Yep.
that we haven't talked about that were complete bogus, random, useless stuff that is no longer applicable. But I figured that out quickly through
Yep.
experimentation, and I think we
Yep.
need to encourage each other to do that more instead of pressurize each other to adhere to a formula for a specific result.
1,000%, and that is absolutely one of the key tenets of Get Stuff Done, is that starting is one of the
Mm-hmm.
most important things, because as you
For
say, you
sure.
learn as soon as you start,
Mm-hmm.
and you fail, which is also important to understand what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so yeah, definitely. I think there's too many people waiting, making the
Yes.
perfect plan. Meanwhile, other people in some cases have already started and achieved, already completed
Yes.
the first stage of what's being measured.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And
well,
like you said before, I'm sorry to interrupt. Like you said
not at all.
before, you mentioned, I think you said cross applicable skills or something like that.
Transferable skills.
Transferable skills, right?
Yes, sir.
This is what we're getting transferable skills from. We're
Yes.
getting transferable skills from experimentation,
Yes.
not from formulaic approaches. So even if you don't get the result you want, you will be able to apply that to something else that you may want in the future.
Tyler, that was almost perfectly scripted, because my last question was going to be, what do you consider to be the most important transferable skill?
Ah, the most important
Mm.
transferable skill. Oof, 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 oof. Ah, yeah,
And on that
that's a
note,
really
join
difficult
us
one.
for part two. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
K-drama
Yeah. Oh,
style. No, I'm
I don't know if this is a skill or not,
okay.
but I
Share
think
it.
I mean there's a ton. There's just so many important transferable skills.
Okay.
Um,
What's the one that you think that you've maybe you yourself have got the most value out of?
I think my ability to prioritize and crisis manage is the most transferable, most helpful skill I've gained.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 I just watched an interview with my namesake Gordon Ramsay the other
Hmm.
day, and he put a lot of his success down to being able to ride through the storm. I guess
Hmm.
in his area of busy kitchens, there's a lot of chaos.
Oh,
But
sure.
maybe he was referring to more than just the kitchen. But he
Hmm.
said that one of the key points for him in his success in his career has been that ability to not give up and ride through the storm and get through the other side. So I
For
think that
sure.
is a perfect way to end. We've actually gone longer than any other episode that I've done so far, so that's fantastic. I think we've covered such a broad range of topics, and we still have others which we didn't
Hmm.
get to. So maybe that will require us to come back for another episode in the future.
Sure.
But thank you so much, Tyler, for sharing all of the things that you have done and learned, and even currently doing, and in the process of growing.
And thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. And yes, I think I wound up talking a lot and I have way much more to say. So if you want to do this again, I'm totally down with that. I love to have the opportunity to talk about this kind of thing. I think more people need to discuss it. I also encourage you, though, to maybe meet with Nidhi Agrawal as well, because she's also super sharp on this, getting stuff done type of discussion. So thank you again
I
for having me.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And also to everybody who has been watching this episode or listening on the podcast platforms. Thank you so much for being with us, for following the Get Stuff Done podcast. If you haven't yet subscribed, I sincerely hope that you do so that you can continue to get the new episodes as they come out every Thursday. I will continue as my part to bring you more interesting, insightful, and fantastic guests, just like Tyler has been today on Valentine's Day. Thank you once again, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode soon.